Welcome to InkThinks. There was a time back when I was a kid that everyone complained about one big problem in Smash: clones. Whether it was Fox and Falco, Lucina and Marth, Pit and Dark Pit, or the truest clones of all, Snake and Mewtwo, people were sick of these things popping up. People hated these things more than Yoshi hates omelets. Luckily, with the new announcement for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Nintendo completely did away with clones and gave us Echo Fighters, which are totally not the same thing because they changed the name. And even though it seemed like a small change, it was just the thing they needed to get people on their side, and now people are all over Echo Fighters, including me. I've never really had a problem with clones, and I'm all for Echo Fighters, which is a trend I am way willing to get behind and give you all some answers on who is coming. And that's why today I am launching the very first episode of Who Wants to Be an Echo Fighter? Let's start things off with number 5. The Legend of Zelda hasn't had a new, original character since Melee. Every fighter that's come has been some variation of Zelda, Link, or Ganondorf. And this makes sense because those three are so important to the Zelda series, but there's one more character who's made appearances in almost every single Zelda game and needs some serious recognition: Impa. The young athletic version, not the old granny version, although that would be fantastic to see old granny Impa beating up Ridley. I'm just gonna say that. Believe it or not, Impa is one of my most wanted characters for Smash. She's the loyal guardian of the royal family and is one of the last of the Sheikah tribe. She taught Zelda everything she knows about being a literal ninja. She wields a naginata and can whistle through her hands like it's nobody's business. She's been one of the only non-Triforce wielding characters to come back into the game time after time. When it comes to a new Zelda rep, there's two main contenders, Impa and Skull Kid, and although I've seen a lot more people speaking out for Skull Kid than I've seen for Impa lately, I think that Impa is much more deserving of the spot. Although Impa could easily be her own character, I would settle for an echo of Sheik. If you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Impa was the one who taught Sheik, so it only seems fitting that she would have a similar moveset. As for the ways that she could be a little different than Sheik, I think her bouncing fish should spike off the stage, and maybe she should have Sheik's old side special while attacking with a chain, even though that move absolutely sucks competitively. It would still be fun. I'm just brainstorming here, but I think Impa would be a great fit. Number 4. The Donkey Kong series is absolutely vital to Nintendo's history and its success, and although I haven't played too many Donkey Kong games, one of my favorite memories is going over to my next door neighbor's house and spending hours playing battle mode in Donkey Kong 64. One of the most notable fighters from this game is Dixie Kong. She's quick and nimble when she needs to be, she can float through the air and climb up trees. That's right, I think Dixie Kong would be a great fighter for Smash. Once again, I think she could easily be her own distinct character, but due to the fact that we already got a new original Donkey Kong character in the form of King K. Rool, I think that having Dixie Kong as an echo of Diddy would be totally fine. I think they could make a couple distinct changes to help differentiate her from Diddy Kong, however. I think that they should definitely give Dixie Kong her own original up special, since she never uses a jetpack in her games. Maybe she could have a move kinda similar to Duck Hunts or Snakes, where she's carried up by her hair spinning around. Another change would be to change some of Diddy Kong's normals to hit with her hair instead of her tail. With a few of these changes, I think she could fit very well over Diddy Kong. Number 3. Number 3 marks a big moment for the channel. It is the very first time that we are representing the Ink part of InkThinks, and we are talking about Splatoon. Now, I have a confession. I have never played Splatoon. Don't get me wrong, I would love to. It looks super fun. But as a newlywed, I don't really have a ton of money to spend on new games. That said, Nintendo has been showing Splatoon lots of love. It's still receiving new updates, and in June a new DLC came out called the Octo Expansion Pack. With this DLC, players were able to unlock the Octolings. But as far as I can tell, Octolings are basically just the Inklings, but with a more angsty fashion sense and suction cups on their hair. Regardless of what they are or how they differ from the Inklings, they became immensely popular, and the expansion pack sold super well. It seems like they would be a great fit as an Echo Fighter for Smash. The only reason that I could potentially think that they wouldn't put the Octolings in is that I'm not sure if Sakurai would want to have an Echo Fighter of a character who's already new in the game. But luckily, we can throw that argument out of the window with the inclusion of Simon, Belmont, and Richter. I think that the Octolings have a very good chance of getting in. While we're at it, why don't you let me know in the comments if Splatoon is any good and if it would be worth my money to get. I want to hear what you have to say because I'm looking for a new game. Anyways, let's move on to number 2. He rolls around at the speed of sound, He's the coolest, he's the ultimate life form, and he's coming to Smash. Shadow the Hedgehog would make perfect sense to include in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. He's one of the most popular figureheads of the Sonic franchise, and he would fit in with the whole heroes versus villain themes that seem to be going on. Now, a lot of people argue that Shadow is too distinct to be an Echo Fighter, but I have a few rebuttals to that. First off, Shadow's model would fit pretty much perfectly over Sonic, so that he could even be a separate skin if he wanted to. They're very, very similar looking. Secondly, while Shadow does have moves such as Chaos Control that could separate himself from Sonic, he's more than capable of doing everything that Sonic does in his moveset. Finally, we see that Sakurai is willing to merge moves from two different fighters into one Echo Fighter. We see this with Chrom as a Roy Echo Fighter, and even though he's a Roy Echo Fighter, he has Ike's Up Special. Using the same principle, we could easily see Shadow with Bayonetta's Down Special as Chaos Control. It would just fit perfectly. I think that Shadow stands a great chance to be an Echo Fighter. Now for an honorable mention. Behind every great man, there is an even greater woman. This phrase holds true for our pizza-shaped heroine, Mrs. Pac-Man. Mrs. Pac-Man is from the creatively named Mrs. Pac-Man. Fun fact, this game wasn't even made by Namco, but instead was the company with the most exciting name in video game history, the General Computer Corporation. They kinda did this without Namco even knowing they were making the game, and one lawsuit later, Mrs. Pac-Man belongs to Namco. As Mrs. Pac-Man started to appear in games both by herself and with Pac-Man, it could be argued that she became even more popular than Pac-Man himself. It only seems natural that if Pac-Man made it into Smash, that Mrs. Pac-Man would also make the cut. And believe it or not, Mrs. Pac-Man has already had a crossover game with Mario in the form of Mario Kart Arcade GP2. On top of all of this, Pac-Man just has the worst alternate skins in Smash ever. You change his little wristbands, and sometimes you catch him in the middle of baking a cake, but that's about it. The only reason that I put Mrs. Pac-Man as an honorable mention instead of a full-fledged part of the list is that I can't think how she would be different enough from vanilla Pac-Man. She could be a little bit faster and weaker if you want to play into gender stereotypes, but other than that, she's pretty much identical to Pac-Man, which is why I think Mrs. Pac-Man would be better suited as an alternate skin for Pac-Man rather than being a full-on Echo Fighter. And before I get to the number one pick, can I ask you guys a huge favor? My channel is still pretty small, but I seriously love making these videos. If you've enjoyed my content so far, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It would make my day. Literally every time I get a new subscriber, I kind of freak out and show my wife, and I'm like, oh, look what happened. It seriously makes my day. I post every Wednesday around lunchtime, and I have a really cool project in the works that I want you guys to be able to see. I've worked really hard on it, and I've teamed up with an animator to make it extra special. So stick around. And with that, let's move on to number one. We talked about this in my last video, but this character is already basically confirmed by Vergeben. Okay, so I thought it was pronounced Vergeben, and I said it like that in my last video, but you all let me know that it's a German word meaning forgiveness, so it's actually pronounced as Vergeben. So I'll try saying it like that from now on in my future videos. Anyway, going back to the prediction, Ken Masters from Street Fighter. Now, when I started writing the script, I kind of thought that Ken and Ryu were basically the same character. And even though they're super similar, there's a few key differences. First off, Ryu is more stoic and serious, and Ken is the total opposite. Stylish, unorthodox, and unpredictable. He's also from the United States of America, which speaks to my inner patriot. As far as game mechanics go, Ken started off almost identical to Ryu, but there's a few key differences that could really set him apart in gameplay. First off, Ken is just a bit stronger than Ryu, while Ryu is a bit faster. Also, when Ken shoryukens his opponent, he literally hits them so hard that he sets them on fire. So having a fire effect in his up special would be an awesome touch. The last big change that would set this Echo Fighter apart is his Tatsumaki Senpuyaki. His whirlwind kick. His whirlwind kick hits multiple times instead of only hitting once. I think if Nintendo implements these changes, it would be an awesome way to represent and honor the Street Fighter series, and bring in a fantastic new fighter. And there you have it. Those are my picks for who I think the most likely Echo Fighters are. Is there anyone I missed? Is there anyone who you think should have made the cut but I skipped over them? Let me know in the comments below. And once again, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like what I'm making and if you want to see more in the future. Until next time, stay smashing. Hey, if you're still here, I want to give you a special invitation to come join me over on my Discord server. It's called InkThinks Multiverse, only this time of year it's called InkThinks Spooky Multiverse. We got a whole Halloween theme going on. It's full of a ton of super active, really fun people, and I'm on there every single day, so it's the best way to talk to me. So come check me out, the link's going to be in the description. I hope to see you there.